Overnight lows into the upper 50s, and we'll see more 80s with morning fog and afternoon sun for our Thursday. From the KIRO 7 Pinpoint Weather Center, and meteorologist Claire Anderson.
I think I'm the one who accidentally gave Claire that hiccup. Right now it is partly sunny and 73 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
Listen live at mynorthwest.com. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dory Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio, and we are streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome to the big show. Got a lot of stuff going on in the local news. Jay Inslee, he's in that debate tonight. This is the last gasp for Inslee. Can he make any kind of inroads? He's got to get from his current position of 0% among Democrat voters. He's got to get up to 2% by, well, the next few polls if he's going to be included in the next round of debate. So in other words, if Jay Inslee doesn't bring it tonight, and I mean bring it hard, then his presidential dreams will come to an end, which means planet Earth will burn into a fiery fireball sometime in the next 10 to 12 years without Jay Inslee as president to save us from certain brutal death. And I'm sure that's the case. I was watching last night's debates. I was live tweeting the debates last night. That's exhausting.
I saw a couple of your tweets.
By the way, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know what? This is one of those times when I think it's more relaxing to be at work.
Yes, I know.
You know.
I know it is. Yes. The debate last night, I was just tweeting like a maniac for the first hour. Mm-hmm. And then I ran out of gas. I couldn't listen to it anymore. It was just
Do you think it was that different from the last debate?
It was so tedious. And I tell you, those clowns at CNN, what a clown show that is. I thought Jake Tapper did a pretty good job. But, man, then when Don Lemon just started asking questions that were so not just biased to the left, but they were just radical leftist questions, and it was ridiculous to try to continue to watch that. So anyway, I'm going to try to do the same thing tonight, and I'll talk more about Inslee in a few minutes here, but this is it for our pal Jay if he's going to stay alive in the presidential race.
And given how little time he got last time, what do you think? What tactics do you think he's going to use this time?
Well, did you see his tweet in the middle of the debate?
No.
1 hour into the debate, I don't have my tweet deck pulled up here, so I'm going to have to paraphrase. But 1 hour into the debate, Jay Inslee tweeted, "I'm mad as hell. 1 hour in and no one has mentioned climate change. I guarantee that won't happen tomorrow night."
Okay.
So he's planning to
really push that.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about a couple of days ago, the New York Times writer last week said the Inslee camp specifically asked, will the national anthem be played before the debate? Mm-hmm. And the speculation was that the reason Inslee's camp specifically needed to know that is Inslee possibly going to take a knee for the anthem tonight?
A knee?
Take a knee. Because if he takes a knee,
well, his head's not going to be showing in the camera.
Shot. The camera will be dialed in on him.
Oh, boy.
It would achieve, and then everybody in the country, that's all they would talk about after the debate tonight. It's all they'd talk about tomorrow. And the extreme left would fall even more in love with Jay Inslee. I mean, they're already at 0% in love, so of course they'd fall even more in love because they can't get any worse. But would Inslee do something that radical? Because right now, he needs a Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. He needs something absolutely cataclysmic to get the attention of people, and talking ain't going to do it with him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that'll make it more enticing to actually watch the debate.
Yeah, well, watch the anthem at least. But what's his name? Beto. Beto invited 4 high school football players who kneeled during their anthem as his guests at the debate last night. And then Tim Ryan was the only one who didn't put his hand over his heart because he wanted to make a show out of it. So the only way you can get any further is if Jay Inslee, because remember, Jay Inslee, he said a couple weeks ago he wants Megan Rapinoe as his Secretary of State. And Megan Rapinoe is most famous for taking a knee for the women's national team. And
being a great soccer player.
No, I really think U.S. women's soccer is a political organization that happens to play soccer.
Oh, no.
That's what which is why their ratings were down 43% this year, even as they won. Okay, babe, I'll talk about the NC a little more in a few minutes. We have a lot of other stuff going on. Let's get right to the big lead.
The Big Lead. Top story.
And I do want to give credit to our news partners at KIRO 7 News, and specifically reporter Amy Clancy and their executive producer, Casey McNerney, who shared with me a couple of stories that they have uncovered. And one of them I told you about late in my show yesterday. This was an incident that happened at Westlake Park. This just shows how our region has absolutely gone down the toilet with these violent drug vagrants. So a week ago Friday, Westlake Park, this is the story I had late in my show yesterday, but just in case you have not heard it. 6 o'clock on a nice summer Friday evening, still the end of rush hour traffic, lots of families and children in Westlake Park downtown, and that's when a man whips it out and starts urinating in Westlake Park. And so a bunch of people, they have a park administrator, and a bunch of people went up to the park administrator and said, hey, that guy's peeing over there. So the park administrator goes up to the guy and says, hey, stop urinating here in Westlake Park. Well, the urinator then whipped out a 5-inch fixed blade knife and lunged at the park administrator. He was able to jump back, not get stabbed. Then an African-American woman confronted the urinator and told him what he was doing was gross. It was in front of women and children. And the guy called her the N-word and lunged at her with his knife, hitting her in the arm, but thankfully didn't break the skin. So what happened? A citizen had to tackle that guy until police arrived. And I've talked about this several times, that a region is in desperate need of change when you have citizens who have to do the job that our prosecutors and politicians refuse to do. Our cops will do the job, but they're dangerously understaffed at the city level, certainly at the county level, where you have an incompetent, lying King County sheriff and a department in disarray, also dangerously understaffed. I've mentioned several times, I have so many members of the King County Sheriff's Department who are contacting me, begging me for help because of the disaster that Mitzi Johanknick is as sheriff. They're saying, please help us. If we say anything, we'll get retaliated against. There's so much pettiness here. And as I've said, I have only twice in my 24 and a half years publicly declared a public official to be incompetent. And I will only do that if I have very highly placed sources who have been in meetings with these people. One of them was Scott Kubley, head of Seattle DOT. I was proven 100% correct on that. He got fired from that job, got his bike share job that he scammed by bilking the taxpayers of Seattle out of millions of dollars. Then his bike share job disappears after 1 year. He was incompetent, over his head. And great sources who have been in meetings with Mitzi Johanknick have convinced me. They're very high-placed sources, and it is a great variety of trusted sources of mine have told me that she is incompetent and over her head is as any law enforcement chief they have ever seen in this region. So those are the only 2 times I've been confident enough in my sources to declare public officials incompetent. Scott Kubley, Mitzi Johankna. So what's happening? So we have citizens who have to do the job because our police departments are so understaffed. The men and women on the street, they'll jump in, they'll put their lives at risk. I'm talking about the cops. But citizens who have to do it. So a guy tackles the guy with the knife in Westlake Park, holds him down until the cops arrive. Okay, that was the story I had yesterday. Amy Clancy at KIRO 7, she's also uncovered another story. And this would fall under the purview of the King County Sheriff's Office. There was a guy just sitting at a bus stop down in Auburn when all of a sudden a complete stranger came up, and the guy thought that the stranger had just punched him in the back. But then the guy realized that the pain was more intense than a punch and that he had blood running down his back. And he realized that he had been just randomly stabbed while sitting at the bus stop. So after a 911 call, the Auburn police responded, and they identified the suspect, who has now been charged in King County Superior Court. His name is Kinta Kunte Hollins. And here's the certification for probable cause. Without provocation, Kinte Kunta Hollins walked up behind the man and stabbed him in the back with a knife. Initially, the man thought he was only punched, but then he felt the pain and blood. The man said he did not know Hollins. He had no contact with him prior to the stabbing. Hollins was making comments about the man taking his cell phone, which the man denied, and said he had no idea what Hollins was talking about. The victim pointed out Hollins to Auburn police. The man was still on location, and Kunta Kinte Hollins was taken into custody after a lengthy standoff with police because he was initially refusing commands to get down. Let me tell you a little bit about Kinta Kunte Hollins. He, by the way, the victim has a pneumothorax as a result of the stabbing. He was taken to a trauma hospital. Kunta Kinte Hollins, his criminal history shows he has been arrested 76 times in the past. He has been convicted 44 times, 35 misdemeanors and 9 felonies, which include assault 2, assault 3, assault 4, escape 2, malicious mischief 1, malicious mischief 2, theft 3, disorderly conduct, driving offenses. 76 arrests, 44 convictions, and was walking free because our prosecutors will not do anything but a revolving door. And they keep letting these people out on the streets, and the only time we will ever lock them up is if they kill somebody or rape somebody. Maybe if they stab somebody, we can lock them up for some length of time. But if you have 44 convictions, 9 of them felonies, and then you stab somebody in the back, can I suggest that maybe you should be removed from society? Maybe we should have a habitual offender law that can just permanently remove these people from society. But it's another example, and it's absolutely mind-blowing how many of these we've had. People with 50, 60, 70 priors who are out assaulting people, stabbing people, raping people on the streets of our region. That is on the politicians, the prosecutors, and our understaffed police departments, which is on leadership. Next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead. Top trending.
Okay, Jay Inslee tonight trying to salvage his presidential dreams. And that's what it is. It is a dream. It's a fantasy. Jay Inslee is speaking this morning to MSNBC, and he was asked how is he going to stand out in his second debate appearance. And this is an example of why the more Jay Inslee talks, the lower he falls in the polls.
This could be a make or break opportunity. How do you expect to do it?
Well, we intend to make it for the reason that we've got a message that is beginning to really resonate, which is the nation needs to make defeating the climate crisis the number one priority in the United States.
What does he mean it's beginning to resonate? As I told you, he went into the first debate at 1%. He's now at 0%. It's not beginning to resonate, Jay.
And we're still introducing ourselves to the American public. People still could not pick me out of a lineup. And that's why these debates are important. And I look forward to promoting the idea that America can still do big things. We can build a clean energy economy. And that's a message that I believe will resonate. So I can't wait till tomorrow night.
But the question was, how are you going to stand out? And talking about climate change, and the anchor knew that, and I think she was bored with his first answer.
So how do you expect climate change to really separate you from the rest of the pack? Because you have a lot of climbing to do, Governor, and there is a long road ahead. And it's important to qualify for each and every one of these debates to, as you say, get face time so you can get picked out of a pack.
Right. Well, listen, we're going to have a vigorous discussion of where the candidates are. And there's big differences between the candidates. I am the candidate who is saying we need to make defeating climate crisis the number one priority of the United States.
God. I mean, it's not working, Jay. I was on it was very nice. The folks at Q13 News asked me to be part of their prime time panel last night. And Jay Inslee's chances came up on Q13 News last night.
He's done a really great job at bringing the climate change.
There's a guy named Michael Maddox who's one of the other panelists.
He's done a really great job at bringing the climate change debate to the forefront of the Democratic Party, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to really break out tomorrow night, and it might be time for him to start thinking about packing his bags.
Dory, dare I ask you your advice for the governor of our state?
Look, Jay Inslee has no shot, and I said this the day he announced, because, as you know, the opposite of love isn't hate. There's a very fine line.
Marianne Williamson would say that.
Yes, the opposite of love is apathy. And the more Jay Inslee talks, the more apathetic people feel about Jay Inslee. The first debate, he was on MSNBC every 30 seconds leading up to the debate. Then he heads the debate, the nation sees him, and he went from 1% to 0% in the Democrat polls. And that's because the more they hear him talk, and, with all due respect to Michael, I don't think Jay Inslee believes one word that he says about climate change, because he has no chance. This is just an ego run for him. And between him and the state patrol troopers that we're paying millions of dollars for to traipse around the country, and his entourage of 20 or 30, he's using more carbon in the last 6 months than the average American in a lifetime. He wouldn't put his ego above the planet if he really believed in his climate message.
Anything needs to be done, huh?
If he doesn't believe in climate change,
I don't believe Jay Inslee thinks that it's a real issue.
If he doesn't, then he's sure been wasting a good 25 years of his life on something he doesn't believe in.
Yes, he has. Hey, look, radio, I've been bringing truth for 24 years. It's time I start bringing some truth to other mediums, too. And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
Okay, let's look at the more fun side of what's going on in the news. The Seahawks' first preseason game is coming up. We're going to talk with Dave Wyman an hour from now about that, but more on last night's Democrat debates next as the Dory Monson Show rolls on.
This hour of the Dory Monson Show is brought to you by Insul.